Writing Ratface, a point-blank limited series on the process of writing a 50,000-word first draft. This is your host, Justin Bendell, and this is episode 9. In episode 9, the penultimate episode for this limited series, we face down the last 8,000 words of the novel draft. In the case of this week 9, I did not write as much as I anticipate. I wanted to write 5,000 words like I was attempting to do every week. I only ended up with around 1,700 words to get the total draft to upwards of 4,600. I'm within shooting distance of the finish and feeling pretty good about that. But it's a bit of a drag trying to do this mop-up work in a way that feels as if I've satisfied the needs of the story and of the characters. Totals for the week I mentioned. The summary for this week. I only wrote 3 parts because 1,700 words isn't very much. This is all I got. One of those sections starts with the line, "The thing I hate most about stories are the endings." And I'll read that to you in its entirety in just a little bit. In fact, I'm going to read everything from this week to you so that you can see a little bit of where my headspace is as I come into that last lap, into that last week where I have to knock out another 5,000 words and finish this thing up. After the thing I hate most, the second thing I want to share is a bit of a monologue by Ratface himself. It starts like this. Today, Ratface says, I resolve to stare straight ahead and face whatever is coming. I resolve to look Lex in the eyes, if I can, and say what's on my mind. The confrontation. Ratface versus Lex. The showdown. The big throwdown. The climactic conclusion. And then there's another section where I talk a little bit about what the hell I'm doing, where I am and where I should be, and how I'm feeling about it. It is the first week of November, 2023. And I should be in the mop-up phase of this 50,000 word first draft of Ratface. I should be far more confident about what I've written. I do have 42,000 words of prose. Some of it's really good. Some of it isn't. So, an assessment. But how much assessment should I really be doing when I have 10,000 words left and I need to get it finished? There will be time for assessment down the road. Right now, I have to get it done. And that's what I aim to do. It is the first week of November, and I should be in the mop-up phase of this 50,000 word first draft of Ratface. I should be far more confident about what I've written. I do have 42,000 words of prose. Some of it's really good, some of it isn't. But all of it is raw material that I can use to develop my story. It is all the raw material I'll need to build the second, stronger draft. This is something I should be proud of, really. But for the sake of this podcast and for this particular round of writing, I am not finished. I cannot and will not begin the second draft until I have my 50,000 words. What should the last 8,000 be? Where are my weaknesses? Where are my gaps? In lieu of doing a literary inventory of all that I've written, as there is not time for that, and it's a time waster when your goal is to get content complete, it's not time for critique yet. That will come. I'm in the business right now of producing raw material, throwing paint at the canvas. I'll save the winter months for reflection. What do I need to do to feel like this first draft has what it needs in terms of critical fodder? Where do I feel that I underwrote? Are there characters that I don't feel I know enough? The answer is, well, of course. Are there scenic moments that need cleaning up? Sure. But I'd go back to the characters. It's a good place to sort of touch base. I think I know Ratface okay. I've spent some time with him. I've had him speak. I've asked him questions. I think I know a little bit of who he is. And I'll learn more in the second draft, but I don't think I need to go and flesh him out in these last 8,000 words. I think he will continue to grow for me. I don't think I need to know Lex very well. He's presumably the main antagonist. He's almost always off the page, and while he's important vis-a-vis Ratface, meaning he's important for the development of Ratface, he's not important to me as a writer, I don't see this character and go, I need to know him intimately. And I don't think the readers need to either. He's a stand-in. He's a symbol. There will be some twists and turns with him. We might be surprised by who he ultimately becomes or what he ultimately always has been. But I don't think we need to spend too much time in a character study of Lex. I'm not looking to write War and Peace here. And if I do think we need it, the second draft will be the place for it. I'll get to it then. Right now, no. Maybe down the road. What I think I need is more writing between more scenes with Ratface and the kid. I introduced this idea of a kid. The kid is found at the scene of the murder. The kid reminds Ratface of himself when he was a child. This kid is one he reluctantly inherits and adopts. This is a critical relationship in this story, and one I don't think I really nailed yet. I think they get separated at some point. Well, how? When? How long are they together? How long do they have to develop their friendship, their relationship? I still haven't really resolved this fundamental question. Sometimes I feel like they don't have time to build any kind of relationship together because in the way that I've sort of rushed this first draft, they come together, some shit happens, and all of a sudden they're split apart. Is that enough time? I don't want to try to shoehorn some kind of relationship when they've actually barely had a chance to get to know each other or develop some kind of trust bonds. So that's important to me. I need to flesh that out. I need to develop some more dialogue between Ratface and the kid. I think I'd have a better and clearer understanding of their relationship and their importance to one another if I could, have them interact and get to know them through the way that they interact with each other. Does Ratface remind the kid of the parents the kid lost? Does Ratface serve as a stand-in to the kid for Lex, who was a kind of parental figure at one point for both of them? Does the kid represent an actual child that Lex or Ratface could never have? What's really going on there? Does Ratface rightfully take on the role of parental unit in the story? Feeling the responsibilities of the elder and caretaker? Does he accept that role? Or does the kid remind him of a sibling that he lost when he was young? Or both? Does the kid simply remind Ratface of himself? Or does he see himself as the stand-in now for Lex? These kinds of layers of meaning in terms of the relationships and what they're mirroring or representing, I probably would like to get to the bottom of that. I see Lex in this kind of narcissistic reflection on the man he lost and how he wants to prevent that relationship dynamic, the one of him and Lex, of caretaking and loss, from recurring with the kid. Ratface wants to stop the buck, so to speak. He wants to be the one to say, I will not let what happened to me happen to you. This is noble, and it's also self-reflective. Is Ratface as self-reflective as this? Have I created him to be the kind of guy who could do this? Maybe that's part of the story, the part of his growth in the novel. I think that Ratface as a character will be one who at first is closed to the world, who sees the world as a failed place and people as failed beings. At the beginning of the story, he's jaded. He has no hope. It's the story of this kid, the story of Lex, the story of the communist, the story of the fascist, the recognition at some moment perhaps, with the help of Verona, that the people Ratface sees as useless and failed are actually redeemable people who are suffering from being poor, from poverty, from structural injustices in place to keep them down, that limit their options for redemption. Ratface doesn't understand superstructures. He didn't go to school. Despite being Lex's child, Lex wasn't exactly there for him. He didn't teach him the things that Ratface needed to know. Ratface didn't get the stories from the past, the stories of the struggle. He learned on the streets, and what he learned on the streets was that the world was fucked and that all die young. He spent his life expecting to die, and expecting to take out as many with him as he could in this failed, fucked up world. But he lived, and he lived long enough to inherit a kid who quite suddenly forced Ratface to reflect on the world. He no longer wanted the world to be what he said it was. He wanted it to be better. This brought him in sync with his feelings about life as a youth before the violence and fear prevailed. He didn't care for a long time, but now he wants the kid to be safe. Others forced him to reflect on what he knows and to rethink his relationship to the city and to the political structure, into what he believes is happening versus what may actually be happening. He might be 38 years old or something like that, but he doesn't know everything. In fact, the things he thinks he knows may be the things he knows the least. These are the kinds of things I want to see in Ratface as his thinking evolves, and as he comes to understand the world as it is versus the world that he was raised to believe existed. This is what will make him the hero, or something like a hero, the better man, the fighter for justice, and this is how the story progression in terms of character will likely manifest. Those are the thoughts I had in early November in week 9 of trying to craft this novel. So about endings, the thing I hate most about stories are the endings. Not the ending itself, not el fin, not the conclusion and the last period, etc. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of everything coming to a head and finding resolution. What I hate is the expectation requirement that there be an ending that satisfies. The Hollywood ending, the Western story structure, sometimes feels a little too tropey, a little too formulaic, a little too much like a goddamn fairy tale or Bible story. And why do we need that ending in that way to be satisfying? Why do we need that satisfaction? I feel like we should be pushing beyond that, and there's the experimental part of me that wants to challenge those expectations and maybe push us into new territory. That being said, I also enjoy the endings that resolve things in a nice, easy way. There's something therapeutic about that too, so I get it. But as a writer, sometimes I feel like I don't want to have to fill that role. I want to push against it a bit. Life doesn't work that way, It doesn't end in a tidy fashion. We don't just fix our problems one day. Not only do we rarely fix our problems, we rarely resolve any of them. Problems reveal themselves to us during our lives, and we ponder them and talk about them and think about them and fret over them, and then we die. A lot of times, we don't resolve our problems. How many of us actually solve our problems and sit around in our old age drinking tea and pondering the days way back when remember those problems we had a long time ago? And I wonder what happened to those. It's too bad we finished, we fixed all that, and now we're bored. That's not how life tends to be. If only we could have more problems in our life. If only we could be more connected to the drama and trauma of our youth. Few of us are like that. Few of us have resolutions as tidy as that. One of the ways that we do resolve our problems, when we do, is by forgetting. And forgetting isn't the same as actually resolving them. It's an absence facilitated by disease or psychosis or something else. For some, that's the best we're going to get. And that's okay. It's real to forget about a problem because we've lost our mind. That's a thing that happens, and hey, there could be worse things. While this may not be the resolution we seek, it may be in many ways the resolution we get. The question I have as I reach this conclusion and I try to come to some triumphant ending is, what kind of ending do I want for Ratface? What kind of ending does he need, more importantly? And lastly, this week, here's some dialogue between Ratface and, I don't know, is it the kid? I think so. I'm going to read it. I'm not sure if it makes a lot of sense, but this is what I wrote. This is where my brain was on November 3rd or something. And I was trying to get more out of these two characters. It's not a lot, but it does reveal some things that I will expound upon in week 10, which is going to be the last episode, most likely, for this podcast miniseries. Okay, today, Ratface says, I resolve to stare straight ahead and face whatever is coming. I resolve to look Lex in the eye, if I can, and say what's on my mind. But I don't think this is going to happen. This is not a novel. This is not fantasy. If I make it close enough to say something to Lex, it's because men died by my hand. More likely than not, I will get close enough to be entangled in the incredible violence of the Lake District henchmen and die trying to reach him. It is not likely that he will weep over my crumpled, lifeless corpse. He's not that kind of guy. In my head, he is that man, but this is a fantasy I've concocted about him. The reality is very different. I'm getting used to understanding what that might be. I need to accept whatever it is. I believe I have, but there are pings and blips inside of me that go off when I say this, something challenging that notion. They remind me that I say a lot of things I think I should, but what I believe in and what I feel are different. I don't tell people this. I barely know it myself, Ratface thinks. Please don't tell the kid, Ratface says. Please don't let her know that this is who I am. The woman stares at me blankly and smiles blankly before the light, absent for far too long, begins to return to her eyes. And it continues to warm and grow and develop in layers and intensity until I see in her some new realization about me, or about her, or about something. Do you think I'm nuts, I ask? She shakes her head. No. I think you're touched. And I think you're special. And I like you. And I like what you just said. And I'm glad you said it. She takes a sip from the green bottle, wipes her lip. Keep saying the things that you feel. You do that, and you'll still die. But you'll die less sick than the rest of us. You're not sick, Ratface says. Oh, I'm very sick, she says. Too sick to waste time talking about. So this is dialogue between Ratface and a woman, perhaps Verona, and maybe there's injury or death involved, and he's it's almost like a deathbed sermon, but he's being frank, and he's thinking about the kid, and she's giving him some insight into, and maybe some feedback on what she thinks about how he's behaving, what he's saying, and it's kind of touching. And I'm not sure what I do with this, but I think it's useful. It's a useful scene. And I like when Ratface speaks. When he speaks, I listen. And it helps to shape what comes next. And speaking of coming next, week 10, I get to 50,000 words. I hit the target. Hint, I do find success. I do that by writing a lot, and I'm sort of all over the place with what I write because I have to get the target, and I'm trying to do it by covering some of these spots that I didn't feel I effectively covered earlier on. Do I get to some kind of grand conclusion? Well, not in the way you'd like. For a first draft, you don't necessarily resolve everything perfectly. You get to some kind of ending and you go, okay, what the hell did I just do? That's for next week. I look forward to spending time revisiting the end and sharing that with you. And then, yeah, we'll do a little bit of a wrap up and go, well, what does this all mean, and where do I take it from there? That's next week. I look forward to it. Take care, everybody.